Obviously, like to welcome JT today. I know Jamie from my time at Ascot. Got to know him quite well over this last year. So welcome, Jamie. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for the invite.
And Ryan, as always, good to see you, mate.
Hello, mate. I got better scenery today, though.
Great scenery. Absolutely, yeah. I've
I'm
changed mine up. I've got this old wardrobe in the back here.
Yeah, I ain't gonna lie.
Open them up, Narnia in the background. Right. So first of all, JT, as I ask most people, how did you get into football?
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those where you can't avoid it when you're young, can you? You play it at school, you play it with your mates, you play it outside your house. I grew up in an estate in West London, so it was one of those things where at the end of 5, 6 years old, it was finish the school day, get home, get out with your mates and play. And it was those days where you don't get it so much now, but it was just group of friends, all ages, pick two teams, let's just play football, and then it just took over.
Goalpost.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. They're the best. They're the best because it's just you're playing with so many different types of people, different abilities, and you just play for the love of the game, and that's where the love developed, and joined teams, and just carried on playing. It was it's the best game in the world, isn't it? So that love for the game was just there, and kicking the ball every single day. I like to think I was fairly good at one point. I represented the county, Middlesex County, captained them. I played for Northwood Football Club at under 18s, won the what is known as the Allied Counties League. Yeah. We beat Hayes and Yeading to that league win, and made my first team debut at 16 in what would have been the Ryman Prem at the time. It was a good journey, and I probably really started to really excel in playing in those later years of 15, 16, 17. And that transition into adult football suited me quite well because I was very I was very physically developed, more so than others. I was quite strong and quite quick at the time, believe it or not. I don't have the pace now, Ian, as you know. But I wasn't the tallest. I'm a centre half. I was a centre half by trade, so I wasn't the tallest. So I had to rely heavily on my pace and my positioning. So that is completely gone now. But by 17, I picked up an injury. Completely tore my ankle ligaments, and at 17, that was the last time I played competitively. So
wow.
It was one of those where it was pre-season training. We were about to play Barnet on the Saturday, on the final pre-season game. On the Thursday, turned my ankle whilst in the warm-up. It was just this massive pop and horrible, excruciating pain. I never made it back. It was one of those where at 17 years old, not having the knowledge or the experience and how to deal with those injuries, or the people around me to have that, I couldn't afford to pay for physiotherapy. And it was one of those thinking, I'll just see how it is in a few days or a couple of weeks and then try and come back. But yeah, never did. Never had the guidance or the right treatment. And when I did try and come back, it was, I'll go for a jog in the warm up, and no, that's not good. I'm still in agony here, and that was the first time I came back. That was it might have been 10, 11 months when it happened, and you took another 4 or 5 months, and then try and come back again, still in pain. I'm like, I just can't do this anymore, and stop playing. And that's when, coincidentally, at the time, I started doing my coaching qualifications, and the next best thing to playing is coaching, in my opinion. So, and that's where the journey started in coaching.
I was going to actually ask that next. So, kind of what drew you to coaching? So, was it something that you were always going to do? and then kind of the injury kind of fast forward that process, or was it you got injured and then you thought, well, now what, and you then moved to coaching?
Yeah, I was always interested in coaching. Always, I started coaching when I was 15, and you know, I was just fascinated by the way we play the game, different styles of the game, how people can improve you by their knowledge and guidance. And it was, I wasn't lucky enough to have a good coach really during my time. I of course, it's grassroots football and they're volunteers, they're dads, and they were brilliant. But I was never taught or, you know, shown something that this is what you could do better. It was finding my own way. But I thought, well, if I can help someone in their youth career, and help them develop their game, then, you know, that's just as rewarding. That I see that as success as well.
Yeah. You know what? It's interesting. It sounds like there's a lot of similarities with you, Ryan, because obviously you've done a bit at centre half as well. Not the tallest, but rely on your pace.
Well, about 6'2", boy.
Taller than me, but yeah, like, you know, we certainly come across. Certainly when I've played against defenders, kind of leagues above, centre half seem to be like 6'3" plus. It's just they're all monsters. But you know, your game is certainly much more around, like, you're kind of better up here than the lot against, and then coaching.
I think I was having a conversation. Obviously, we spoke to Billy the other day, and I was having a conversation with him, and I was just saying, like, I feel like there are people that are more suited to like football league football, where it's more about like this, and then I do think that there are people that are more suited to non-league. So like, I've come across some non-league players like centre halves, mate. With all due respect to them, they're obviously doing half all right, having half an all right career, but as footballers, woeful. Honestly, like, you'd find some better technical footballers at like 14, 13, for example, but like they're just massive, bang, head it, bang, kick it in the channel, play percentage football, and it just kind of works for them. But for me, that's just, they can only go so far. They're quite limited, I think. Whereas I've always, obviously, when I first started, I was like, I'm centre midfielder, so that's always been there. Then the worst thing is I had a tiff with the guy I used to play centre midfield with, because he was lazy and I used to do all the running and used to do all the ball work, and I used to have a go at him. So then the manager at the time, when I was playing like local football, went, nah, you can go play centre half and he's going to stay there. And I was like, right, okay, just to try and stop us from bickering. And then then it kind of stuck really. And then, to be fair, like, I am about 6'1", so height's not bad, but it's if you put me up against, say, I don't know if you don't know, like a Bonzangala or something like that, or like just an absolute man mountain, you'd think, no way, look at this geezer play centre half. But it's one of those where I just think, especially as the years go on, if you can read the game better, like even just little things, I might not be able to physically, say, like, I've got a Mark Ian, say Ian's 6'3", big guy. All right, I might not physically be able to compete with him, but what I can do is I can outthink him, I can outmove him, I can, do you know what I mean? I can play that sort of game of chess. As that ball comes into him and he's about to take his touch, and just give him a little nudge so his touch gets away from him, and just things like that. Like, so you just got to find
Don't need a nudge for that.
ways around it. But you know what I mean? You just got to, you just got to find those ways around it. And I've always, like I said, I was speaking to a guy called Steve Guppy yesterday, and we was having a conversation, and I said, I've always been better, say, with the ball at my feet than I have, say, like, I say 1v1 defending type thing. But I feel like, similar to yourself, Jamie, like my positioning, my pace was very crucial to, and like my reading of the game is what gives me that advantage to a lot of people. And I think the low levels you go down, that knowledge and the way they see the game and their understanding of movement and timing and things like that isn't there. It's very much sort of, if I want the ball, I just run to it. Give me the ball to fit. There's no, I'm going to drag him over here to create the space there. Then I'm going to move him, and then I'm going to come like 5-10 seconds before you actually get the ball, like that process. So yeah, I mean, yeah, 100%, it's kind of helped me. And then obviously I ended up, through like my ability on the ball and stuff, I've ended up, like I said, playing in the middle of midfield at times, centre half, mainly really right back, just because I've always been like one of the fittest wherever I've been. And obviously my on the ball now is probably my strongest point in terms of my passing and my crossing and stuff. So I suppose you look now, modern day, it's do you know what I mean? It's the sort of right back who does that. But yeah, centre half, I enjoy it, to be fair, but you got to play for the right managers. So, like for example, going back to Ryan Peters, when we was at Braintree. Now, don't get me wrong, Alan Devonshire was a good manager. He's done well, but it wasn't my style. It was very and it's crazy because when I signed there, my dad went, "You're gonna love it. This geezer was the most Englishest, hilarious player and like creative, everything else." And then when I played for him, and it was just the complete opposite. And that's not killing him off. Everyone's different, and he's obviously had success doing what he does. But it was just for me, it wasn't what suited my game, if that makes sense. And then I went to Bath a couple of years later, and the manager was like, "Total football, play out from the back," and I was like, "Oh, buzzing, love this." Do you know what I mean? So I think that's a very important thing to be able to find as well, because it's not necessarily not good enough, but it's just whether the style of the manager or the player and the team kind of suits what you're doing to get the best out of you as well, you know.
Yeah.
I was going to kind of touch upon that next. So, in terms of like football philosophies or kind of like styles of playing, is there a particular kind of role model that you look up to, JT? Someone that you think, I like the way he plays the game? Is there a certain style that you like to kind of, or ideally you'd like to play yourself?
Yeah, I think a coaching philosophy evolves over time as the more experience you get, and I don't particularly have one role model because there's a lot of coaches that will fall into the trap that would have would want to be like a certain someone and have that playing style. Now, obviously, you have at the moment Guardiola, right? Who's his type of football is outstanding. It's unbelievable and it is so attractive to watch. But you get coaches that will try and replicate that with their own team, and it wouldn't always come off because they don't understand the detail behind going into that style of play. But also recognising maybe you have the players within your team and in your squad to be able to do that. Yeah. But I think it's just taking elements out of different playing styles. There's, let's just say, for example, Mourinho, I think he's absolutely fantastic in terms of his tactical detail and his understanding of the game. And he's someone, that could go to, let's say Barcelona, which he did with Inter Milan, and get a result. Mm-hmm. To get against the greatest side in the world because of how he sets his team up and how defensive-minded his teams are. And his Chelsea teams were, especially in his first reign at Chelsea, was the classic 1-0s. And I think my philosophy has probably adapted and evolved over time. But for me, I think you are far more superior without possession now. I think at our level of the game, because you're in control. If you have possession of the ball, you're more likely to make mistakes by giving the ball away or whatever it might be, missing the goal. You're more likely to make mistakes. So I think you're more superior, and this, Ian, because we how we play. We like to defend and defend well, but that allows us to then counter and attack more effectively, and that way we've scored, which is close to 100 goals this year, but before it got suspended. Yeah. The philosophy always evolves, and you just look at different styles of managers, and Eddie Howe, for example, coming in, and his philosophy, and you can even look back and go like Sam Allardyce and his style. It's effective. If you've got the right kind of players to perform that kind of style, then it's going to be effective. You're going to win 3 points on Saturday. So it's just sort of trying to blend that all together into what I would like to see, what I think would be successful depending on the group of players I have. And even in the last 2-3 years, that's changed because of the type of players we had. Yeah. So yeah, it's always evolving. So I have my way, what I'd like to for us to play. It's we like to be dominant in possession when we can. But also be dominant out of possession even more so. Dominate our 1v1s. I say that every time. Yeah. That's the most important thing. Is if you dominate your 1v1, whether you're a centre half, a right back, a winger, striker, you'd be better than that other player who's marking you. And then a big emphasis on set pieces, as you know. We've been very good how we set ourselves up, because it's 44 minutes of a game is a set piece, whether it's a goal kick, free kick, corner, throw in, and that's an opportunity to score. So that's 44 minutes of opportunities to score in a game, and we tend to get one a game, which has been very useful for us this season.
Definitely. Because I was going to say, I think this is why this is the best sport in the world, because there is no one particular style that you say, well, if you can play like that, then you're going to win the game, because there's so many different ways of doing it. I remember a manager I played at when we were at Marlow and we won the league, Mark Bartley. I'm sure you guys would have heard of him, if not met him already. And at the start of the game, he was, now I'm just choosing kind of his tactics here. I'm not saying this is the right tactics at the time, but it's more the philosophy. So he would say, we're just going to hit it over their fullback, over their centre half for the first 5 minutes, just get up the pitch. Now, if they can't deal with that, well, then we're going to do that for 90 minutes. They learn how to deal with it. And it was very much a case of, and the philosophy is, well, if they can't deal with a particular situation, well, that's what we're going to keep hammering them with until they find a way, and then we'll find another way to play. But it was always about, let's figure out what their weaknesses are and play on it. And there was never a way that we'd have to play. It was more, if that's what they're not so good at, well, guess what? That's what they're going to get for 90 minutes.
I think at the end of the day, like the ultimate goal is to win. Really, obviously, there's certain things you want to do to try and win that game of football, but it's like I think it was when Guardiola was at Barcelona and they absolutely battered Celtic, didn't they? Like the stats were ridiculous, but Celtic went away with a 1-0 win.
Yeah,
Celtic wouldn't have cared that Barcelona, like, do you know what I mean? They won the game. And I just think, 100% agree with what you're saying, Jamie. I think as well, a lot of people or a lot of coaches kind of fall into the trap of, God, that's how Guardiola plays. Oh, that's how Klopp plays. That's how I need to play. That's how I need to do it because they're the best. But I think it's one of those. In my opinion, I feel like to try and replicate what someone else is doing is what I think is just can be a little bit lazy at times, but also very naive to think that you're going to be able to do that. I feel like it's one of those things you can take certain principles that they have, but then you mold it into like your own, if that makes sense. So and based around the level you have, you couldn't say at Ascot or even at my level, you couldn't go and play like Barcelona or Man City because, as you said, the players aren't. I'll say it, the players aren't at that level to be able to do that. Otherwise, they would be up at then sort of levels. So I'm sort of like a firm believer of, like, for example, I want to play, get the ball down, play out from the back. But if I go into a team, say, I don't know, combined counties, I'm not going to try that because they're going to make more mistakes. If I want to be successful, they're going to make more mistakes trying to do that because they're not capable, through no fault of their own. Then it's going to actually end up costing us. Therefore, it's going to end up costing me as a manager or a coach in my career because I'm not going to be successful. So I feel like it's one of those, you have to look at the league, for example, like the Conference South, right? If you look back over the 5 years, every team that's been successful in that league have been sort of very big and strong through the spine, like a lively winger, and they've got a big target man and then nippy forward. And they're quite direct. They go back to front early, win the first ball, play from there. Any team that sort of like try to get the ball down, pass it, move it, like Weston-super-Mare, like Poole Town at one point, Oxford City, they've always struggled. Literally always struggled because once you can't do that, or teams at the level just sit in, then all of a sudden you can't break them down. Then what do you do? Now you can't really go over the top because you can't compete physically. And so I feel like then you got to, like you said, adapt every year with the squad that you've got. And then as you go up, now you're like, okay, now we're in the conference. Now I know I can start getting a couple more ball players. And you could it's like an integration, if that makes sense, in my view.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, because I've been there where we tried to play out, and I'm just like, you got players playing alongside me, like the lad I spoke to you about, the centre half, Ian, the big lad who was just unbelievable in the air, big, strong, head it, kick it. It was great at it. But then we're trying to get him to play out, and it's like he's having a bad game. Yeah, but you're asking to do something that he can't do. So it's like, is he having a bad game, or are you setting him up to kind of fail? It might be like, look, if we're going to play out through Ryan. If we're not, Jack, when you get the ball, I'm going to look after you. We're going to turn it. We're going to hit the. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's slightly different in a way. That's just sort of my kind of view on it.
Yeah, I think coaches are definitely, as you say, that they fall into that trap. So do players as well, because players are also watching the Premier League, Championship, and seeing these world-class players do what they do for those clubs, and think, I want to play like them. And they go to and then if you don't play that style, that's when as a manager you get those players who say, well, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we trying to play
Yeah.
to my feet? Why are we always putting it in behind? Why we do, always question why we're doing it, because they'll say, I want to get the ball at my feet. I want to do this, and that's fine to have an opinion, but if that's not the strength of our team,
it's bounced off you.
yeah, that happens as well. Yeah, that happens as well. But if that's not the style of our team, that's not the strength of our team, then why are we going to change it?
Yeah, it's like I said, it's team, isn't it? It's not that necessarily that individual. And you bring a group of players in that will suit us. You don't bring in 5 players that are total footballers and 5 players that are big lumps, because you got a bit of indifference. You try and bring, I suppose, as a manager, I don't know, but you try and bring in players that are going to suit that. 11 players, 18 players that are going to suit the way you want to play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And we're quite lucky. Ascot and Ian, is that we've got a really good group of people and players that are that suit our style, and that's why we gelled very well together as a group, and that's how we win in games. And we should be playing step 4 football next year, but we just have to go and win the league again next year. And the style we have and style that we play, that will definitely bring success to us. That's what we want. That's what the players want. They want to know that they're going to play in a certain way that are going to win games, and I feel like we have that.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to say, unless you're a team like kind of your Barcelona's, your Man Cities, and even then they'll come up against very good sides. But you're always, certainly at our level, you're always going to come up against a side that's going to be will dominate a game more than you. Then you're always going to come up against a side that you'll dominate possession more against them, and you've got to find different ways of playing. If we just have one way of playing, that's where we're going to lose some games, because we're not adaptable, I suppose. And I think that's probably the key thing about a successful team, is the more adaptable they are, then I imagine the more successful they are as well.
I'm sure we must have all sort of been a part of that game where, for example, one team sort of having a battering, or your team, you're on the other end. It just feels like that's the longest 90 minutes ever. But that's when I feel like you were saying earlier, Jamie, about when you haven't got a ball, essentially you can dictate a lot, because when, like, for example, we played Wilton a couple of years ago, when 1 minute in, centre half sent off. Wow. Now we literally 86 minutes, we literally camped, not really camped in our half, more, especially in the first half, camped in our half, like lines were compact each way, very narrow, just frustrated them. And essentially what happens is the other team like Wilson, when we played them, they didn't have the patience. And I feel like when you go down as you go down the levels, the patience of the players is less and less and less. And it was actually ended up being all right. We was constantly moving, and we probably got through a lot of legwork, but it was probably defensively one of the easiest games I've been a part of, because we just had to keep our shape. Shuffle from side to side, get up when we needed to, drop when we needed to, and we were just having to win our headers. And it was almost, there wasn't that big expansive pitch where you got people rotating and stuff like that. And we basically hit the post in the last minute. We nearly nicked the win, like after being down to sort of 10 men. But then I think that comes down to a lot of your mentality to approach it either. Like that sort of, like, you get sent off, now you've got to dig in and really work for the team and really do them extra yards and put yourself on the line, like, for the team at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And and sometimes you can, like you said, you can frustrate the opposition to that they make mistakes, or they then start pushing more and more players forward because they're trying to find another solution, and then that actually leaves you more gaps. And when you win the ball back, you can now start penetrating a lot more. So. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, we've had an example of that this seaon. I don't know. That's what we were pretty smiling about. Ian. I don't know. Do you want to really elaborate on that a bit more?
Well, yeah. So Guildford City away, we well, I thought first was probably, you'll probably know the timings better than me, but 10, 15 minutes we dominated the game. We went 1-0 up. It was a fortunate own goal, but the goal was going to come anyway. We had chances to score, and then Elliot got himself sent off, a bit of a rash challenge, and we're down to 10 men. But I don't think they hit the target, or if they did, it was the one that dribbled through to the goalie, right?
No, there was no shot on target.
No, and it's such a comfortable game for us. In fact, we had chances up the other end in the second half on the break, and if anyone was going to score, it would have been us. But we had that feeling that they could have been out there all night and they wouldn't have scored.
I'm not sure, yeah.
And that,
definitely.
I don't know about you, JT, but that was probably one of the more satisfying wins as well of the season.
Yeah, I think everyone knew how delighted I was after that game as well. I mean, that was probably the most enjoyable win because, yeah, you talk about a team that goes down to 10 men with 70 minutes to go, 1-0 up. Yeah, we had to work really hard for that, and it's one of those wins that we had to really work hard for. The pitch wasn't great, and that worked in our favour as well because the opposition had plenty of possession, but couldn't really move it quick enough to be able to penetrate us or get in behind us. So we could just sit back and defend properly and work and play on that counter. We didn't score on that counter, but we didn't need to because we knew that they couldn't play through us or they couldn't even hit the target. And that was good. And speaking to the back four in that game afterwards, they said it was that they felt really good physically. Like didn't feel they had to really push themselves. They didn't feel they could have played for an extra half an hour and felt fine. And that was a testament to how we set ourselves up. So that goes back to the philosophy. And for us as a group, that we do spend time on how we defend as a group and playing compact. And that's where all that time hours on a Tuesday, on a Thursday, really come to the front on a Saturday and you go, right, we've done this before. We've done this before in training many, many times. We know we can do this. We know that we're fit because we only about 2 weeks before that, we did another little mini pre-season. So all those worries you might normally get have gone away. So we just focus on the task of actually, let's just get the job done. And that was the most rewarding 3 points we've had all season.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think I'm being unfair here when I say like our centre halves aren't runners, are they? They're big lads.
No,
they're fit, but they're not runners, right? And that game would have suited him. And I imagine, particularly our captain Louis Bowers. I imagine if you were to say to him for 90 minutes, you just got to win your aerial battles and keep your shape. He'd be happy with that. He would take a season for games like that.
He would love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of saying that like they had a lot of possession, but like I feel like it wasn't that they dominated possession because they were the better team. Like we allowed them to have possession, and and I think that's the difference, isn't it? Like if you know where your strengths lie, allowing teams to have possession, particularly at a level where teams will make mistakes. I think that's a philosophy in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, that is it. Yeah, we're allowing possession because we know where we want to win it back, and we know where we're going to win it back. We're dictating where we want them to play. Yeah, and that's the key. You can get teams that just drop back and allow possession, but then allow them to get their strength to then go and score. But we just took that out of their game, which was we learned from that in our previous fixture against them, was their pace and what they can do on a counter attack themselves. So if we just take that strength away from them and allow us to defend deep, we win the ball back when they give it to us because they're not good enough to keep it for long. And then that's how we won the game. So as you said, that's setting traps.
Yeah. So with regards to philosophy, then I think we're all in agreement that when it comes to senior football, like the 3 points is the most important thing. But both of you are involved with youth football as well. Does the philosophy change then? Because you hear about the Ajax philosophy where it's more about developing the player, but certainly, surely this has always been the case for me, is winning's a good habit to get into, and it's certainly what the game is all about. But how much does that change when you're coaching youngsters?
I think I don't know. I think I was having a conversation. I had a plumber around yesterday. As crazy as it's going to sound, I was having a conversation with him about like you said, about winning and stuff like that. And I do agree with it. I can understand where people come from in the sense of, it's about, if you go to school sports day, you're in junior school or something, it's about, it's about taking part that counts. But then I feel like you kind of instill essentially a, not moral, but you just instill something in them it's okay to do okay, which is it is, but at the same time if you want to be successful, winning is life. Like if you're at work, you want to be the best person in your job to therefore make the most money or to get that promotion or to then be able to provide for your family. So I feel like if you just say, look, it's okay, it's just about doing what you can do and never really pushing yourself and never trying to really be better, that's great, but I feel like you'll always maybe have just going into life like it'll be okay. Do you know what I mean? It'll never be great. It'll never be bad. It'll be okay. And for me, like, it's hard because I'm transitioning from I hate losing. I want to win. I don't even like drawing. And I have to at times refrain myself, even when I'm talking with the academy boys, because I'm like, oh, we've lost, and I'm like, and it gets annoying. But at the same time, I do have to understand that it is about their development, especially at this moment. But I still need to instill that determination and work ethic and the want and the will to win. And that, you know, I say to my lot when they lose, and I see some of them on the bus coming back, or like in the change room, and they're laughing and joking, I actually say to some of them, like, are you lot really, like, you know, 16 to 18-year-old lads, and I'm like, are you serious? Really? Like, you've just been sort of given a runaround for 90 minutes, and you've come in here like it doesn't hurt you, doesn't, do you know what I mean? It doesn't really mean anything. And some of them are like, yeah, well, what can you do? And I'm just like, but then you can see the ones that it really hurts and it really annoys. And based on the year we've just had, the ones that you can see that take it almost personally when they lose, they're the ones that have gone on and have been the most successful out of the boys we've got so far. They've both gone and signed for Tadley in the Wessex League, because it's like, to them, it's not okay to lose, and losing's one thing. They then have to then work even harder to make sure that that doesn't become a habit. Losing's a habit as much as winning's a habit, you know? So I think development is a massive part of it. And I think, especially with our lads, I try and play football in terms of a philosophy. We want to play football and we want to pass the ball out. We want to make them good footballers. But then at the same time, is they also, at that age, they need to understand that their next step is men's football, and it's not going to be pretty tappy football. So let's be realistic. Unless you're going to go into a professional club at a higher level, then it's not going to be like that. So I need to make sure that they also instill that physicality. So Zaid and Victoria went and signed for Tadley, but their first games, they'd come on after about 10 minutes. And even if you just look at him, you've met Zaid, Ian, right? He's tiny, isn't he?
Little lads, yeah.
Technically very, very good, clever, most hard-working lad I've probably ever come across. But physically, he's just not there yet. And we've had to work with him about how to use your body and like be one step ahead here, so it takes a little bit of the physical element out of it. And he come on. And to be fair to him, he's getting his first game. He done really well. But there were times where he was just being a little bit bullied and manhandled at times. So for me, I said to him, this is going to be great for you, because you're going to go out. Ability-wise, you're probably going to be at the same level, if not better than them at that sort of level. I said, but physically, you're going to be very, very far behind. But this is now where you're going to develop physically, so that when you play against your own age group, or then when you start and your ability keeps going and you're adapting physically, you're going to go you're going to just move on and move on and move on. And I had that luxury when I was at Bournemouth. Me, Harrison, that we spoke to the other day, and like Alex Moff literally went out on loan to, I think, sort of like this Wessex League. And technically, mate, it was easy for us, but we used to get bullied all the time, and I never forget it. We played against a team called Moneyfield. I don't know if you guys have
played against them.
Yeah,
mate. I don't know what you'd have been like, but absolute horrible teams to play against. No football, just in your head, little kick in here, little punch there, just horrible. And the first game, mate, I lost my head. I was getting booked. My mind just wasn't on football, because I was just being given a run around physically and like the verbal side of the game as well by the striker. And then 3 months later, we played them again, and I never ever forget it, because it was like that trigger in my mind where that's how far you've come. I went up for a header, and against the same striker that had just given me the absolute runaround, and I just went bang, and I looked down. I won the header. I looked down, and he was just on his backside. And to me, it's like such a little thing. I was like, all right, I've seen that physical progression. Then when I went back and played my own age group and stepped up with the first team, it was so much easier. So I'm a firm believer of, especially with our lads at the moment, I want to instill the football inside them, but also want them to realise what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are, and play to that. But also they need to adapt that physicality side, because realistically, with my academy, the boys aren't going to go and play in the Premier League or the Championship yet. They might do with progression and stuff, but they're going to have to go and excel in the non-league first to then push on. So you have to prepare them for that. That's kind of like my real take on obviously the boys that we've got now. It might be slightly different, obviously, with yourself being a Championship club and stuff, but that's how, I don't know, that's just what, from my point of view, with the boys we have and the way that they have to go up, that's, in my opinion, the best way for it. Now that might change. It might even come out of this conversation. I might go, you know, that's just a really good point, actually. Yeah, it might change, you know. But that's kind of like the starting point, I think, at the moment.
Well, that's a really interesting point, actually, because obviously you were at Bournemouth, who obviously a Premier League club now, and as you were saying, you had to go to Wessex League, so all the way down, was it 9 leagues, I think, Step 5 football. Had to go down
I hated
there.
it. It was horrible. Yeah.
But it was, as you said, it was such an education for you. And, you know,
Absolutely.
stepping back isn't necessarily a bad thing, because you said, you notice how the transition to then first team training at Bournemouth was a lot easier, having had that experience at a lower level.
I think as well with that is it wasn't just adapting to the physicality of men's football that was part of it. It was humble yourself, because you're nobody, so go and play that, like, sort of thing. So be humble, but then at the same time is, you're going to go there. They didn't really give me any guidance. They just come watch my games and give me feedback and stuff like that. But you're going to go there and you're going to be exposed to probably the lowest level of semi-professional football, what the environment is, a new manager, a new, like, you know, players of that level, all these other things that are going to come into place that are so contrasting to the professional game, like whether the commitment's there, whether it's, you know, you go out in a warm-up and it's a little game, a little circle, and just like, do you know what I mean? You couldn't do that, say, in the pro game. And it was like, go and solve those problems for yourself, go and adapt. And it's either sort of like, sounds dumb, but sink or swim. If I didn't do well there, mate, I'd have never gone. Do you know what I mean? And I didn't, but they saw the progression from the moment I went there to the end. And in hindsight, because we come from a higher club, it was easier, because the manager and that was like, loved us before we even kicked the ball. And we had a really good relationship, and I've actually played for him since, when I've sort of been in between a club for whatever reason. I've actually gone and played back at that level. Hated every minute of it, but because of that relationship that I built with him, you know. So there's loads of reasons. Like I said, at Bath, we had a lad who won the Under-20 World Cup with England. The following season, come on loan from Reading to Bath. You know, and he had to adapt and adjust, and not just his game, but mentally, his personality. And it just, I think it improves you on so many different levels, having to do that.
How about you, the lads at Brentford? Kind of, what's your experience? Not just the Brentford lads, but the youth players you work with.
It's a really interesting topic, and you know, it's different depending on the level of football and also the age as well of players. Now, my background is working in academy football at Brentford as well, and managing our football program for, you know, 5 years old up to, you know, 16, 17, 18. And you know, we have to educate these players, and nothing will override educating these players in the game. And winning, everyone wants to win the game, and that's that should never be taken away. And that's an important, I think that sometimes that message gets lost, is that you know, we're not saying to anyone we don't want to win. I think naturally we all want to win as kids. You know, we've all been there. We all want to win naturally, and the kids are the same now. We all want to win, but the boundary is if the coach, when it's youth football, and this is specifically to youth football, if the coach is winning at all costs over the development of the players, then that is where there could be that is where is a problem, because we're not educating these players to be able to perform at their highest level, to develop those players and develop their game. That has to take paramount importance over winning. And naturally, if they're performing well, if they're playing well, they keep learning, they're going to be winning games anyway. Now, the difference is when, and I suppose on how you look at success. And as a manager in my position, success is, it's winning games, and that's obviously number one priority for us as a first team senior football. We want to win, but also I deem success by the development of players, and then we can still develop players at senior level to be able to play at a higher step in the football pyramid. You know, we've had that recently as well, where we had Nathan Minas. He joined us last year. For the first half of the season, scored 30 goals in 32 games, and then got his move to Billericay. Now, I had no part in coaching Nathan Minas, you know, previous to him being at the club. So I you know, but we gave him the platform to be able to then put himself in the shop window, so to speak, to get that move. And that's where we sort of deem success, is the development of players. And we've even seen it now this year. We've got young, you know, Ian. We have a young squad, And, you know, I always say to them that I want them to improve, I want them to develop, and that's what I'm there to help them do. And I'm coaching them as much as I can to improve their game. And of course, I want them to progress with us as a football club into step 4, and that's natural progression for them. But if they get opportunities to both play step 4 football, step 3 football, step 2 football in the future, then that's more success for me, because I've had an impact on someone's life and someone's career in football. And that is more success than actually, you know, a win on a Saturday sometimes. You know, so there's different ways of looking at it, and but not taking away the fact that for me personally, I want to win every single thing, everything, absolutely everything. Whether it's a tackle in a game, whether it's a header in a game, whether it's, you know, scoring that goal to win the game, whatever it is, I want to win. But it's being mindful of the younger players that it can't override their development at all times, because otherwise we will never improve players.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. So like even this year with our boys, for example, we're new into it. We're new into the area. Bracknell obviously very, very well established. That's got a bit of like our biggest rivalry, I suppose, especially playing through Binfield. And we played Bracknell twice, and boys got battered. And I've never had a go. I've not had a go at them. I've never moaned or said anything to them about trying to do the right things and it not working. Said, listen, if I can see you trying to do the right things, if I can see what you're trying to do, no problem. I don't care if you make a mistake. What I care about is how you then react to it, whether you then get the ball next, what do you do next time you get it, and stuff like that. And there was one game we played Bracknell, and we were beaten before the game. Bracknell turned out with the biggest, strongest squad, and our boys started stressing about them, and 4-0 down at half time. But we didn't even do the little things like the essential things of, we didn't apply ourselves, we didn't work hard, we didn't make angles to show for the ball. The things that come down to you as an individual, that's got nothing to do with ability, but the things that comes kind of take a bit of courage. And I said to them at half time, I said, listen, boys, you know, if the game's finished, I said, it's not a problem. It's good that you're coming up in these situations now, because now we find out ways of developing. I said, I'm not angry at you, I'm not annoyed with you, but I'm disappointed in the sense that what you've done is you've not given a true reflection of what you can do. I said, you're 4-0 down. You've got absolutely nothing to lose now, but I want you to go out there and I want you to essentially try and better the second half. So if you lose 3-0 second half, you're still an improvement. And we went out there, right, and we absolutely battered them. We didn't score. We absolutely battered them. And I said to them after the game, and I said, listen, lads, 4-0, some very silly mistakes, like naive, young, you know, playing out from the back, maybe it's not on, or just little things like that, playing straight passes. I said, that happens. It's not a problem. You're going to make those mistakes. And every goal probably comes from a mistake at some stage. Not a problem. I said, but I'm so happy and so pleased because you've shown me that, one, you've got the courage, and one, that you can perform, because you went out in the second half and you completely dominated the game. And for me, that shows a lot more. Forget your ability. That shows a lot about your character as well. And for me, that was like success. You know, like that was, you've had a really bad half. How do you now deal with that? Like failure in a way. You're here. They went back out and they obviously done really well in the second half. And then that happened sort of twice at the beginning of the year. Back end of the year, we played them again at their place. I feel that a draw would have been fair if we'd have won. But we have a habit of, we make very silly mistakes and give teams goals. Whereas you know, you're probably coming about it. We always give team goals. We have to work extra hard to score them. And we lost the game 2-1. We played them last game of the season, and we went 1-0 up. They equalised, and then they scored within the space of 5 minutes of each other. And I thought, oh no, how are my boys going to be now? But we'd been the better team by far. It was just, again, two very silly mistakes. I might go inside, it's raining. And we ended up winning that game 3-2. It was 2-1 down at half time, and we ended up coming back out. Goalkeeper had to get subbed because he was injured. And we won the game with no goalkeeper, 3-2. And I said to them, I said, look at where you were. You was losing to this team 4-0 at the beginning of the year in 2 different games. So look at where you are now. I said, we're not the be-all and the end-all. We're not the best in the world at the moment. But look at where you are now and look at just how far you've come. And in a way, I said, that shows you how much you've developed over the year and how much pride and satisfaction you can take yourselves, let alone me. Because if, for example, they were developing, I suppose, then that gap would have always been like that. Whereas it was almost like here, and we was catching, and eventually we've gone past them. And that, let me walk and talk. That for me was a very satisfying moment in the sense of, yeah, okay, brilliant, we won the game. But I look back and I think, look just how far we've come, you know?
Yeah.
And like you said, I think 100%, we all want to win and we want to do stuff like that. But we also have to take into consideration that we instill the right things for the boys, and we actually give them that, like they can look back and say, oh, okay, because I think that's a massive thing. If the player doesn't believe in what you're saying to him, then there's a bit of a issue, because they're not going to really listen to you properly. So yeah, 100%. I agree with what you've been saying, really.
Yeah, I imagine, you probably got more experience on this than us, but I imagine probably one of the most frustrating things as a coach is having someone there that isn't kind of pulling in the same direction as the rest of the team, or kind of wants to do their own thing.
Yeah, that's the hardest thing, isn't it, in football, is to trying to get not just 11 people, but 16 people in your squad all moving in the same direction. Yeah. We've been, as I said, we have we have a fantastic squad. It's the best squad that I've worked with for a very, very, very long time. And everyone, thinks the same, wants to win, understands the process, understands that, the process from the start of the season through to the end of the season and what that might look like. But yeah, when you do come across those players that would want to be more of an individual than what they are, put themselves first over the team. Yeah. Now, that is a trait that comes up very regularly in football now. They'll think about themselves, they'll worry about themselves, about playing at a high level, wanting to be the main man in the game all the time, wanting the ball, wanting to think they're, the most important person around. Now, that's fine if you can deliver on the pitch and win games for the team, because you can kind of, to a point, accept that as a group, because it's you sort of think about that maverick. You talk of a maverick player, that player that doesn't really train really that well, or he does certain things, but in a game they'll turn up and they'll score a hat-trick and win the game for you, and you can kind of accept that then, in a way, because you can trust as a teammate, that actually they're going to turn up in the game. But in general, that doesn't happen. And you're left with this player that would like to be more of an individual to the detriment of the team. And that's the problem then, and it's trying to deal with that and understand that quite quickly. But it can also be lost in communication between the coaching staff, management team, and that player as to what you actually want them to do in a game, what their role is in a game, defensively and attacking. And that's when players can lose their way and become that individual. And it can not just happen to one player, it can happen to 2-3 players in a game. But if we can organise everyone and say, this is what we expect to see from every player, out of possession, in possession, when we win the ball, everyone's on the same page. Because at the end of it, and sometimes you do need it in that, those difficult games, you need that individual brilliance to come out from someone to go and win you the game. So it's a hard balance to get that. But if that person is working hard for the team, you can accept that to an extent.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think sorry, go on, Ian. Oh no, I was just going to say, 100%. And I think going back to like the success stuff as well, just going back, obviously what we've experienced sort of this year is the two lads, obviously Zaid and Victoria, that Ian, they've done, when they first come, they was good, but the progression you've seen throughout the year, the fact that you've instilled, a very hard working ethic. The lad Zaid stays out every single day after training. There've been days I've had to say, no, Zaid, just relax, have a bit of rest today, because your rest is still important. He's Muslim, so he's fasting at the moment. He's doing like 4 sessions a day in lockdown. And even forget winning games and stuff, but even just seeing that in a person where that wasn't in him at the beginning of the year, I found very satisfying from my point of view. And he's actually then been able to be sort of like a maverick off the pitch, in the sense of he's now inspiring other boys within the group to be doing the same. And they also, I said, they went and signed for Tadley, and I can hand on my heart say that I've not had the satisfaction I had when I saw them both involved. I got the picture come through for obviously our social media stuff, and then I see a picture of them in the paper, and I got a good review back of how they played, outweighed any winning feeling after a game throughout that season. And obviously, like I said, we all want to win, but the ultimate goal for us, if we're in youth football, is to develop players, but human beings that have got good morals and good beliefs and a good understanding that we then can push them onto their next phase of their career, and they know what it's going to take for them to push on and progress and really be successful, I think.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Like, so the development of not just an individual, like so you said, that kind of feels good as well, but I suppose the winning aspect of football matches comes from knowing that you've developed a squad, you've developed a group of players, become a cohesive unit, and the result of that is 3 points or trophies at the end of the season. And that's
I think the prime example of that is Guardiola's first 2 years in England. Man City first year, work in progress. He was developing the squad, developing the team, developing players. They had a good year, don't get me wrong, but then look at how they smashed it the year after. Do you know what I mean? I think that's a good example of exactly that.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to talk about the JT, when you mentioned like someone wants to be like the star of a team or something like that, and I think a lot of people will look at someone like Cristiano Ronaldo, and I've seen him live, right? And there are times where he's not, and Messi's the same actually. There's times where they're not doing anything in the pitch, they're not working defensively or anything like that, and people will look at them and think, well, actually, that's how I want to play, and I want to be the star man. But if I've done a lot of reading of interviews recently, and people that have played with these guys and trained with these guys have said how humble and how hard working they are.
Most hard working in the team.
And you don't necessarily always see it on a Saturday because they know their game, and people set up when they've got them inside them that they're the star guys. If you can give them an opportunity to get hold of the ball and influence the game, then that's how they want to play. But in terms of them as individuals, they are not lazy footballers. They've obviously got to the level they've got to for a reason, and hard work and good work ethic is.
I think on that though, it's I spoke to a guy's ex-coach, played loads of games, and we were speaking about literally those two. And like when the Champions League used to be on, and whenever there was a sub, they'd be like, "Oh, they ran 12 kilometers today."
Yeah.
There was one at one point. It said Messi ran 6, and everyone was like, "What? Like it don't work hard. This looks so and so's running 12." But then there's a difference. So the level that guy's on, mentally, physically, emotionally, is not. I mean, it's never going to probably ever happen again. So even when people just see him walking around, they think, "Oh, he's not working hard," but he's calculating his next move. He's seeing the play develop way before it's even happened. Do you know what I mean? So he's not necessarily running, but he's being smart. So there's a massive thing and a misconception, I think, especially the lower you go down, and I don't know if you guys have come across it, but someone that runs and runs and runs and runs and runs, by a lot of people, is seen to be someone that's very good, very hardworking, and does a lot for the team. Now, I used to think that in a sense, and then I changed my mind a couple of years ago after having conversations with people that have played higher and stuff, and there's a difference between working hard and working stupid. So, like I said to you about that geezer, the geezer I played in the midfield a Tadley with for those games in between.
Yeah,
mate. Honestly, terrible footballer, right? But he just ran and ran and ran. We're playing in the centre midfield together, and I'm to the left, he's to the right. He's running over my side. Like, yeah, he's working hard, but then he's working stupid. So you're better off, and realistically, you've only got a certain amount of energy when you play a game. So you need to maximise that velocity, that energy into the most important moments of that game. So if that means you are walking into position 10 seconds before you need to be there because you're seeing it, rather than, oh, I'm out of position, now I have to sprint and run because it's too late. I'm just a bit like, you know what I mean? That sometimes people can be naive to seeing someone run and thinking they're doing amazing, they're man the match, they're working really hard for the team, they're really good for the team. But then someone that maybe isn't running as much is being detrimental, but maybe they're actually running smart as opposed to running stupid, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking like, Ronaldo and Messi, two of the greatest players that have ever played this game, and score 70, 80 goals a season, every season for 10 years or more. And to an extent, they can they can do what they want, in games, and their teammates will recognise that and go, right, you just get in a position to receive a ball to go and win us the game and win us the Champions League, which they did. But no one recognises what they do away from the pitch. No one sees that and the effort and hard work that they put into themselves in order to be ready, game ready, every 3 or 4 days. You think the recovery time, the hard work and training, it's ridiculous. The machines, and that's
even if you just look at how many times they've had injuries throughout their career, it's very minimal.
Yeah, and that's the next point. That they're playing every game of the season, more or less, and that's a hard thing to do. There's not many players in the world that can play every single game of the season, 70 games of the season, every 4 or 5 days. In average, it's incredible. It's incredible machines, and you can't replicate that lower. As the lower down the football pyramid you go, you can't replicate that because we're not physically built in that same way. We don't train as hard or often as what they do. And that's what a lot of players will I think they do understand it, and they will try and train in the gym, but they won't train appropriately to the game, or train. And you can't expect to be a professional player or play at that level if you don't train the same or the same intensity as what they do. And that's where often people and players will. I don't want to knock them for it and say that they're wrong, but they're just uneducated in doing it.
Yeah.
And if they did it the right way, then they actually probably would see more benefits to their performance than playing. So that probably goes into that point Ian, that you said about players that seem to be working really hard, but are they doing it in the right areas? Are they doing it?
Absolutely. In the industry I work in. With kind of like health and fitness, certainly it's one of my biggest bugbears when I'm looking at footballers who are training and bless them, they're working hard, they're putting the effort in, but and they're not working smart. A lot of them will train like bodybuilders, and it's a different sport. I mean, arguably they're completely different ends of the spectrum in terms of what's required for those sports. Nothing wrong with bodybuilding. It's it's a sport in its own right, but you won't get many bodybuilders that can perform at a high level of football when they're training for bodybuilding, and vice versa. Like a footballer won't be a high level bodybuilder. You'll get guys that have done both, but at the same time, no, you can't do it. And it's a different sport. You need to train. The word you used, James, performance, and it's training for performance. And training for aesthetics compared to training for performance is just completely different things. So I think that if players could understand that sooner rather than later, then their training will be much better for it.
Yeah, and then you get someone like Akinfenwa, who then just breaks the mold,
Mate, ridiculous.
But I think people don't realise actually how hard he works in training away from the gym, and that's probably forgotten more so than actually what he benches.
Yeah, definitely. But even then, like he's not a bodybuilding kind of type of training he does. He's very, very, very strong. But it's a performance thing. Like he's working on his strength and not how he looks.
I think he's working on things that give him those benefits in a game. So I've played against him, and I've never known anyone to receive a ball, right, come over, bang on their chest, turn 180 degrees with it on their chest, and then just flick it with the shoulder and carry on running. Do you know what I mean? But like you're saying, his training will be geared around holding the ball up. You ain't going to see him making little like cutting, darting runs in behind. Do you know what I mean? You're probably not going to see him doing, the quick feet stuff because that's not going to be his benefit. He needs to work on the things that are going to give him that longevity. It's like, for example, you would never have had Michael Owen back in the day looking to, I just dink a ball into my chest and that's not. You know what I mean? Realistically, then that comes back to, I think, knowing what your strengths are, knowing what your weaknesses are, and being honest. If you've got a winger, like I said earlier, like a Ronaldo, who back in the day he had all the tricks and skill and everything else, and then you've got a winger as say like an Aaron Lennon. They're two wingers. They're two very successful wingers in their careers, but they're completely different. you'd never seen Aaron Lennon try and do some of the things Ronaldo done, because that's not him. So he has to be honest and be self-aware of what he can do and what he can't do.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've seen that a lot with like Raheem Sterling and the effect that Guardiola's had on him. How much his game has developed over time, and a lot of that has been a lot of the work he does off the ball. The runs he's making, getting him into goal-scoring positions. And that's clearly a lot of that's been down to the coaching that he's had, because he certainly wasn't making them runs when he was a Liverpool player.
It's that finer detail, I think.
Yeah, it's going back to. Sorry to interrupt. I was just saying it goes back to what we deem to be success. Is it educating the player, developing the player, or that immediate win that's right in front of you? Everyone loves to win games, and it's great if you win 1, 2, 3 games in a row. But if you want to win the league, if you want to win the cups year on year, you need to get those players up to that level of understanding and education to be able to perform at that level to go and win. That's what people do it for. We play the game to win medals, not just to win games on a Saturday. We want to win something at the end. We want something to show for it. And that's something, Ian, you may have probably heard me say that quite a few times, is that we want to win something at the end of the season to show for all the hard work we've done. And that's where the education comes in throughout the season to get us to that point.
I think like the prime example we'd say currently at the moment of something like that is like that sort of sustainability would say, for example, like a Man United who's had all those years of success, now really gone through a real struggling period, which was, I think, inevitable. And in a way, as people, Solskjaer sort of come in, and I'm not saying he's the best manager in the world, but me personally as a Man United fan, I like what he's trying to do. He's getting in a couple younger sort of players around the same age that you can now work with, and you can have a sustained period of success, rather than say when Mourinho come in and he got success right away, 3 titles in the season, and then it was amazing, great, and then all of a sudden that sustainability is kind of gone. Like Leicester won the Premier League, they're not seen as really a big team, but they won the Premier League, so why not? But then it's because they've not been, until maybe this year, they've not sustained that dominance, as it were, which comes with, in my opinion, like I said, developing players. If you're developing players and they're getting better, your team's getting better, and then you're going to be more successful, you're going to win more games. So it's, I think, that process of, do you go here and now and get short-term fix, or do you work with them, develop them, bring in the right people, mold the team for a longer sustainable period of success?
I grew up in the 90s with the Man United side under Sir Alex Ferguson. Kind of one of the things about that side is the players changed. I mean, a few of the players were there for long periods of time, like your Ryan Giggs, Paul Scholes, and Gary Neville, etc. But the side changed a lot in terms of personnel. But you could cover up the shirts, cover up the players who are playing, and you'd know it's a Man United side. If they're just silhouettes because of the way they play, and he managed to keep a certain style of playing through decades of football, and yet hardly always using the same players. And and that's testament to his coaching and his management. I think the fact that he could keep aside that successful player in a particular way with different players.
Yeah, 100%. I think that kind of comes down to, again, you're looking at the scouting side of things and the recruitment, and what we said earlier on is making sure that you're bringing the right players to the club that suit your mold. You wouldn't go and see Andy Carroll, for example, playing for Barcelona. And I think that's why, even now, you look at, say, the Bruno Fernandes deal that happened recently, that went on for so long, but it's because it was seen as such an important signing that they had to make sure they got it right, because they got so many signings wrong over the last couple of years. 100%. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, right. It's really interesting you say that, because it's difficult to get that philosophy across to a group of players, knowing that at the end of a season you could have a more or less a brand new squad to work with again. But the longer you're with a club, and I'll be going into my 3rd season, I'll use Ascot as an example, just because I'm obviously with the club now. But we know what the philosophy is, and the players know what the philosophy is, and we'll then have players that will come into the club, if they do come into the club, that will fit that philosophy now. Whereas at the beginning we had to mould that into players work with those players. But if we were going to progress, we had to change our squad, then work with those players again to go through that whole philosophy to teach them what we and guide them to what we were looking for. But it gets easier and easier and easier as you get, as you go on with that squad. And if you keep those players part of that journey, then it gets easier and easier, because then it just becomes natural.
Yeah, definitely.
I think as well, I don't know how you feel, but regarding like when you have a good rapport with the players, which obviously you must have, at that level, players are, the older ones, I feel like are more self-aware of, this is still my hobby, I can pick up a little bit of money if needs be. So they want to stay with a manager, if that makes sense. They want, I like it here, it's run properly, it's done right, the manager's got great beliefs, great ethics. So I can go, say, to the league above and earn an extra £20, but do you know what? I kind of want to stay here. Do you know what I mean? And I think, like I said, then that obviously ultimately then is a big testament to the manager. But then at the same time, it's I suppose it helps keep the philosophy. And like you said, you haven't got to have a big overhaul of players and stuff like that. Which
I can certainly vouch for that. Like I'm about to enter my 19th season playing this sort of level, and
you're old.
Yeah, I can count on one hand the amount of times that we had successful squad, and the philosophy was a big part of that. And I remember the first conversation we had on the phone, JT, last summer, and straight away I knew it was somewhere I wanted to play, because you got that across straight away. And money at this level, certainly for me anyway, it's irrelevant. And I learned that the hard way, kind of chasing money when I was younger. But it's irrelevant, because you're going to play your best stuff when you're enjoying your football. You can fit into a team where you enjoy it, you feel like everyone's pulling together. The financial rewards will come if you're good enough anyway. And but yeah, when you get to kind of my age, like, it's not going to be paying your rent or your mortgage or whatever. So it's always got to be about enjoyment. And I think that should be paramount for every footballer. And as I said, if money is something that you're interested in, that will come if you apply yourself right and you find a place where you can enjoy your football.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Right, I've got one last question for you. So,
there you go. As
coaches, what has been the best bit of advice that you've received?
It's a question. It's a very, very good question. Very good question. I think for me, it's to stick to your principles and beliefs always, because you can always fall back onto that. If you have that, then I think people know where you stand. Whether that's your staff, or whether that's if you're managing up, that's more sort of managing the chairman of the football club, and obviously managing down with the players. If the players know where you stand, that goes a long way, and I think that's underestimated.
Good answer. Yeah.
So, are we talking from a coach to a coach, or a coach to say me as a player, which then I've relayed on?
Well, I'm going to say both now. I want to hear both of them.
Okay, cool. So, like, I think it's hard really, because I've not really, obviously since transitioning into like coaching and stuff, I'll be honest, I find the younger ones harder, because it's almost like I've done it for a year and it was difficult, because I felt like I struggled to sort of not dumb it down, but take the level that I'm thinking and then think about where they're at and relate it, if that makes sense. And so I find it easier to work with the older ones, so I feel like you can get a little bit more of that across. But I think I don't know, from a coach, like, to me as a coach, I don't know really. I think it's potentially just like you've got to obviously be, I think, a little bit humble to realize that you don't know everything. But then at the same time, you have to have your own personal beliefs and make your own decisions, not try and be the next this, the next that, be the first you type thing, but take a little bit from everyone that you've gained. So there's no such thing, in my opinion, as a bad experience. There's a good experience, and then there's a learning. So you can learn things from bad experience of what not to do. You can learn things from good experience. You can always learn something and take something from someone, and then you just kind of mold it yourself. And I went on my B license 2 years ago, And the one thing they said is, when you come to your philosophy and the way you want to play and stuff, is you have those that philosophy, but there you have those things that are like those non-negotiables, those things that no matter where you're at, how old you are, what level you're at, they are the things that will always stay, and they make you kind of yourself. But then you've always got to be willing to listen, learn, ask questions, and develop other parts of that philosophy, if that makes sense. So I'd probably say that I feel like over time there's going to be a lot more that I'm going to probably have. If I'm looking at when I retire, getting involved into coaching in academies and pro clubs, you're going to get that sort of nurturing. Whereas at the moment, I think I've just kind of gone into like independent things really. So it's been a lot of sort of self-learning in a way. In regards to advice from a coach to say me as a player, man, I've had loads, but there was when Eddie come back to Bournemouth, I used to be one of these. I used to, if I'd do something, it didn't work off, I'd try even harder the next time I got it to do it, because I just feel like I'd have to, and I ended up making another mistake, and then I do it again, and another mistake, and it's like, and then I beat myself up. And he literally just come back to me and just said, listen, I don't care if you make a mistake, it's not a problem, but what I care about is next time you get the ball, you make that same mistake. He said, so instead of trying so hard, which I think so many kids do, to rectify the mistake you've just made, just get it, past the next 5 minutes, just play the most simple football you possibly can, and then you'll naturally just build your confidence back up. And then next time it comes to trying to hit that same pass or that same cross or whatever, you'll just do it instinctively, and it will almost work off. And it's not massive advice, but it's probably the one thing that's stuck in my mind. And I've actually said it a lot to boys this year. Don't try and hit that 40-yard diag, and then next time you get it, you're thinking, before you've even received it, looked at the picture, you're already doing it, because then you're doing it for the wrong reasons and at the wrong time, because you feel like you have to make up for it. Just get the ball, keep it. Then in 5 minutes time, you might ping it out there because it's the right opportunity, and you're not trying too hard to make it work. Kind of like when boys go on trial. You try too hard, you'll end up not doing well. Just play a normal game, you'll end up being fine, So that's probably one thing that's kind of stuck in my mind. And then, we say to our boys, listen, always ask questions. And I pride myself on going out of the way. I said, listen, even if it's at 9 o'clock in the evening and you want to ask me something before you forget it, message me. I said, I might not reply straight away. You know what I mean? I said, but I'll always get back to you, and I'll always try and help. But also a lot about self-learning as well. So not just me telling them, do this, do that, think about this, think about that, because that's great. But they need to be able to adapt and make their own decisions at times and think for themselves. And even as a coach, I can learn from them,
Yeah, definitely. I'll share mine. So obviously I'm not coaching football as yet, but coaching's my livelihood anyway. And I remember I was doing my biomechanics coaching qualification, and our guy in charge then, he said, if you can't explain your subject simply, you don't know it well enough. So it was a real kind of eye-opener to say, well, if you can't relate that to somebody, then you need to go back and study a little bit more and learn that subject a bit better. So that's really helped me. I like using analogies and things to describe things. So if I can't find a way of describing it in a different way, then I know I've got to go back to school. So that was a good one from coaching. And then as a player, it was actually, I've heard Sergio Aguero in an interview kind of describe this one as well, but it was being a centre forward. Again, it's a really simple one, but it was when you're shooting at goal, concentrate on your standing foot, because we can all kick a ball. So if you get your standing foot in the right place, then you're more likely to hit the target, you're going to hit the ball, etc. Make a good connection. So as a striker, when I'm having a shot at goal, that's really all I'm focusing on. Standing foot.
I've scored so many goals, mate.
That's it.
Yeah, it works, doesn't it? It works.
Yeah.
I reckon it started when you cut that long hair off.
It's coming back, isn't it, next year?
Back, yeah. The barbers will open soon.
Oh, tell me about it.
Right, guys. I'll let you enjoy the rest of your day. I've really enjoyed this. Again, something I could talk about all day long. So I really appreciate your time. And
really enjoyable. Yeah, thanks very much.
Yeah,
good
100%.
chat.
Definitely. And hopefully we can do this again sometime in the future.
Fingers
Great
crossed.
stuff. Yeah, brilliant.
Bye, mate.
Appreciate that. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Yeah.